Hello, everyone, and welcome to Edge Talk Radio. My name is Angela Zabel. That's me. Today, we're going to be talking about the path to peace, the pandemic of being right, with author James Twyman of Oregon. And we are going to be getting into his brand new book of I Don't Know, Maybe I Love You, and so much more. So I can't wait to get in it. And who am I? My name is Angela Zabel. I am a teacher, coach, and medium working with those in the non-physical my entire life. I am also a writer, retreat host, gallery reader, speaker, offering information with intuition, mediumship, and so much more. You can check out more about me at angelazabel.com. And there's also the monthly membership. This is growing our connection to us, our world, all that is around us, and our role in it. And that you can find at angelazabel.com. And today we are here. I'm going to get this set up with Edge Magazine. The Edge Magazine is the leading events and media resource dedicated to all aspects of holistic living, health, wellness, and the mysteries beyond, sharing information, wisdom, and resources committed to promoting businesses, organizations, and individuals who support our collective journey to wholeness and balance. They're currently distributed in 30 states plus Canada, with over 17,000 magazines per printing and over 42,000 people reached online with their vibrant online community each month. Have the magazine shipped to your door, become a drop spot, stay up to date, and be part of their newsletter. So you can find out more at edgemagazine.net. And today we are here with James Twyman, and he is an Anglican priest and an Episcopal Franciscan with the community of Francis and Clare. In December of 2017, he founded an interfaith spiritual community in Mexico called Namaste Village with 41 apartments or casitas focusing on the non-dual teachings of many spiritual paths. For nearly 30 years, he has traveled the countries of war-torn areas to perform the peace concert and to focus worldwide synchronized meditations in which millions of people have participated. He has also been invited by leaders in countries like Iraq, Northern Ireland, Israel, Bosnia, and many others to perform during periods of great conflict. And that is so needed. So I can't thank you enough for all you've done there. James is a New York Times bestselling author of I Don't Know, Maybe I Love You, The Moses Code, as well as 24 other books. He is the award-winning director or producer of 7 feature films, including Redwood Highway and Indigo, and has produced over 22 music CDs, including the Billboard chart and best-selling CD, I Am Wishes Fulfilled with Dr. Wayne Dyer. James is known around the world as the peace troub, what is it? Troubadour?
Yeah,
Thank
like
you for that.
musician, troubadour from France, that kind of thing.
Ah, I was like, I didn't see that word before. Thank you for that. Make sure to find out more about James at worldpeacepulse.com. And he's also on Facebook. And again, there's so many movies, books, music CDs. He's an author of so much. Check out his Namaste Village. There's so much in there. And he also has the Enlightenment Coaching Program. So check out all he has to offer. Make sure to go to worldpeacepulse.com, and the links will be down below also. So, James, thank you so much for being here today. And I've got to ask, what drew you to write the book? I don't know. Maybe I love you.
Well, two quick things. First of all, you're making me tired telling me all the things that I do. I didn't realize I had done so much.
You're amazing with everything you've done.
Other thing, I should say that in terms of the title of the book, it's important to get the commas in the right place. So, for example, this happens all the time. People will say, as you did, I don't know, maybe I love you, but it's actually maybe, comma, I love you.
Ah,
So it changes it. Maybe I love you. Maybe okay. Let me tell you the story of how it all started. I had decided that I wasn't going to write any more books. After 20 some odd books, I felt I had said enough. But then I had an experience with my younger brother, and it was around the beginning of COVID. We were on the phone, and Kenny loves to argue with me. He's definitely better informed than I am, so he often wins the argument, which I don't like. But we were talking about something, and And finally, I just said, Kenny, three things. I don't know. Maybe I love you, man. And
Mhm.
he said later, I hate when you do that. How can I keep the argument going when you say that? And I realized he's right. You can't keep the argument going when there's no pushback. And the truth is, I don't know. This is true for all of us. I have my opinion, you have your opinion. We all have the things that we believe, but we don't know. There's no way I can know anything for sure. So maybe there's something that you can teach me or show me if I listen to you, if I just
Mhm.
listen. But the most important thing that pulls it all together is if we love and respect each other. So that's where the title came from. But once again, I didn't intend to write a book. I was talking about this at many of my lectures, and I realized how sticky it was because it could be days later and I would come across people and they would just haphazardly say, I don't know, maybe I love you. And I thought at some point I need to do something with this. And then last September, I was on a concert tour on the East Coast. I'd driven my van all the way from Portland, Oregon to the East Coast. And on this particular day, I was in a town called North Conway, New Hampshire. And I was having
Oh,
dinner with my friend, um, with my, it's funny how names just drop out of your head. Walt, my friend Walt, and his wife Anne. I didn't know at the time that Anne owns a medium-sized publishing company.
oh,
And I said, you know, I'm not going to write any more books, but if I were to, this would be the one. And I told her the story about my brother. And she said, if you write that book, I will publish it. That is a
wow.
book that is so needed today because, well, the subtitle is How to Depolarize Your
Yeah.
Family, Country, Business, Country, and the World. So this is a guide to start a movement, to have depolarizing agents all over the world, people who are committed to lowering the temperature, bringing us back
Mhm.
together. We live in such a polarized world today where left feels they're right, right feels they're right, and everyone wants to be right. You mentioned it in your introduction. I call it the pandemic of being
Mhm.
right. And this is,
Yes.
I think, the biggest challenge before us. We've somehow fallen into this belief that being right is more important than anything else. And if you agree with me, you're okay. But if you don't, I'm going to push you out of my life. I'm going to end any conversation with you because you voted for a particular person or you believe in something that I don't believe, whatever it might be. And somehow we have forgotten some of the most important lessons that we learned in kindergarten, how to be
Yes.
kind to one another, how to listen to one another, how to respect each other. And so I think that this book is so needed today. I would say that whether I wrote it or not, because we do need a movement. I think the only thing that's going to bring us back together is if we have enough people who are tipping the scale saying, no, I'm going to be a depolarizing agent. And I should say right from the beginning, you did mention my website, my normal website, but there is another website for the book and for the movement. It is de-polarize.com. So depolarize, but with a dash, de-polarize.com. Please go there. You can get the book there. There's the thing I would love for you, everyone to do is to take the survey. There's a 1 minute long survey there on de-polarize.com
Nice.
that will help us really define what what we need to do today to get this movement going. So that's how the book started.
I love it. And we talked before a little bit earlier, and this is a time to change things in the world, to to have that depolarization, to quit the division. It's so important and so needed. But people like you are the people that are going, hey, we can do this. And you're kind of you've done so much throughout your life. I was reading through all the things you've done, and it's like just everything you've done already is helping so many people be on that path to be depolarized. And when you were writing this book, there was so much you did. You did this cross-country trip. While you were doing that, what are some of the crazy moments or things that happened on this trip along the way to help bring this book into fruition?
Well, as you mentioned, the book is a cross-country journey. It's a road book. And because that night that I had dinner with Walton and Anne, and she said she would publish it, I thought, okay, I guess I'll have to write it. And I started that night. I
Wow.
stayed in my little van camper and just that night started writing. And the next day, I went into a cafe to have some coffee and some breakfast. And across the street, there was a man. His car was covered in Trump signs. I should mention that this was right before the 2024 election.
Okay.
Okay. So things were really heating up. So this man his car is covered with posters, and he's carrying a poster, a big sign that says, "Vote Trump or else."
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I wonder what the or else is. But I ended up deciding to practice this, I don't know, maybe I love you process on him. And I just went out and said, hey, you want to have a chat about this? He realized very quickly that I was not in alignment with him in terms of his beliefs or his candidate. But instead of arguing with him or trying to change him or trying to get him to see my way, I listened to him first. Now, when we choose to just listen to someone without judgment, it brings the temperature down. And the likelihood is they're going to return the favor. They're going to then listen to me. If I'm not trying to push them, if I'm not trying to convince them or change them, more than likely they're going to listen to what I have to say. Sorry, I actually live in Mexico, as you mentioned, this community, and you're going to hear a lot of noises going on
I
outside.
love it.
This is
I love it.
street sounds. And
It
so
sounds really happy there, so it's awesome.
that's the thing about living in Mexico. The Mexicans are a very loud culture because they're very celebratory. So you're right. There's a lot of happiness.
I love
Anyway,
it.
so I'm talking to this man and I'm sharing with him my perspective. And I said to him, I don't know. This is who I support. This is what I believe. But maybe in this conversation, there's something I can learn from you, and maybe you'll learn something from me. But we're here to respect and to love each other. And somehow that broke through, and we had a beautiful conversation. And I didn't change him, and he didn't change me, and that's not the point. The point is not to try and control or change someone, but to open up a space. So
Yes.
that was the first experience that I had. There was another that was, I think, even more interesting. So I have a dear friend who's been one of my very best friends for over 30 years. Her name is Vicky, and Vicky lives in New Jersey. And so on the way down, I was traveling from New Hampshire. I visited some friends in Maine and Massachusetts. I was doing shows along the way. And so I stopped at Vicky's place for a few days in New Jersey. And anyone who knows Vicky will tell you that she is the most loving, deeply spiritual person they've ever met. So
Mm.
it was a great surprise to me when I learned that she was an avid Donald Trump supporter. Now, the point of this show is not to say that anyone who is a Donald Trump supporter on who's listening here, that's great, fine. We're going to listen to each other and gain from each other's perspective. But to have my friend Vicky, who I've known for so long and who is so loving, see, I have this idea in my head that anyone who is loving, who's spiritual, would never vote for Donald Trump. That was my prejudice. And
Right.
here's Vicky, this beautiful woman, sharing in a very gentle, beautiful way why she feels that this is the right choice. And instead of trying to change her or convince her of my perspective, I listened to her and I learned a great deal. So it just goes to show that when we put this into practice, these three sayings, I don't know, maybe I love you, something organic happens. And there's so many other stories that we could talk about, but those are the two that really stand out in my mind.
I love that because this is a time to be able to listen to each other's perspectives and not judge and just sit back and listen and be okay to have different perspectives without without the division being so stark and being able to talk openly about all of it. Why, or, and this is on any subject, not just political, but any subject, to be able to open yourself up to say, I'd like to hear your side. I'd like to hear, and then my team is just saying, I have a team in the non-physical, and they're just saying, it's not a side. I'm open to hearing your perspective because there aren't sides. This is what you're working so hard on depolarizing, and that means taking away the sides also. There is
Yeah.
no side. And
Let me tell you where this gets a little tricky. And
mhm,
this is a story that I also wrote about in the book. When I was back here in Mexico, I had a conversation with a very dear friend of mine who is also a priest. And she said that she didn't really buy into this fully because she said there are situations and times when someone is saying something or believes something that is abusive, that is
right.
um, what would be the right word? Discriminatory, racist, right? And so let's say, for example, someone comes to me and shares something that is quite racist.
Yes.
Is the first thing I'm going to do is say, I don't know, maybe I do. Probably not. I would have that inside me and hold that as, say, an energy, but I would probably challenge that person and say to them, you know what? First of all, thank you for sharing that. And I have to say, that is racist. You know, your opinion about this group of people is a racist opinion. But I would hope that the way that I share that, coming from the perspective of, I don't know, maybe I love you, is not going to come across as an attack,
Yeah.
but it's come across as an open invitation to look at that. You know, the truth is, racism is in all of us. We swim in the soup of our society. There's been racism in our society forever. There have been times in my own life, and maybe yours as well, where a thought will come into my mind and it's a racist thought. And I'll think, where did that come from? I don't believe that. That's not, but it's in there. So if I have someone who is expressing some kind of a racist idea or concept, if I just push them back and get angry at them, I'm not looking within to the part of me that could have this opinion or this energy, and the deeper healing can happen. So even in a situation where someone is saying something that I have to confront
Yeah.
because of whatever reason, like take today with what is happening in immigration. Okay, I think many people believe that Democrats don't want immigration control, and that's not true. I think everyone wants a strong border. The question is, how are we doing that? Are we doing that in a way that's compassionate and loving? Well, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So, this gets a little tricky, but if we can just keep this in our heart, I don't know, maybe I love you. And even if we have to confront a situation or an idea, then that the energy is going to be clear and clean, and we're going to probably get a lot further than if we attack or try to change people.
Absolutely. I agree with that because it is a time to there are things to call out, but doing it in a way that you're not creating division, but having a conversation. But to say, you might want to look at what you're saying. I look at it differently to have that conversation because that's really how we change things. We have to talk about it. We have to say, hey, do you think that's right? Do you think it is? Finding the open space to have those conversations, that's very, very key going forward. And there are a lot of volatile topics right now that we need to talk about. We need to find the common ground. And people are working more towards it. It feels like there is a change going on now where more people are saying, let's talk about it. Let's find a common ground. And knowing there are those, this is something, when you come across somebody, you're coming from this space of love and going, I don't know, maybe. I love you. When you're coming across someone that is very um, volatile to you or feeling very not wanting to speak, what are your reactions with even with holding this in your heart? How do you handle those situations?
Well, this is a very good and very current question because we
Yes.
see this all the time. People who are so convinced that they are right.
Yes.
Now, let's look at why they're so convinced. Usually, people are convinced that they're right about something because so many other people share their opinion, right? They've found many authorities or doctors or whatever it may be that are telling them that they're right. But here's the thing that we have to look at. Uh, Social media, as an example, tells you what you already believe. Okay. There are algorithms that notice what you watch, what you buy, what you listen to, and gives you more of that. So let's say I'm an anti-vaxxer and I've looked at a few websites about that. These algorithms, they say, okay, this is what this person wants. So they're going to give me all the doctors, all the authorities, all the people who already are saying what I believe. Therefore, uh, in my mind, I have the right to say, well, everybody else agrees with me. I have all of these doctors who are telling me the same thing. I must be right. But the opposite is also true. If I am someone who believes that the vaccine was a good idea. And I click on a few websites or whatever it might be. It's going to give me all the doctors and authorities who say that I'm right. So it's this back and forth. And the need to be right is the thing that is pulling us apart. So if I came across someone who was very strong in their belief, and I certainly have, first thing I'm going to do is take a deep breath and just listen to them and not try and change them or jump in. See, usually what we do is we listen, and while we're listening, we're already beginning to form our arguments. We're already getting ready to prepare our response. And that's one of the things that we need to watch and try not to do is just instead just to really be open. And that begins with the first step here. I don't know. If I realize that I don't know anything for sure, let's take Donald Trump, for example. I did not vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is my great teacher because he does trigger me. But I don't know if he is right or not right for the country. He may be exactly what this country needs right now. So if I can relax into that rather than being on the bandwagon and just attacking anyone who voted for him, I'm not doing myself or anyone any good. So I begin by listening. Okay. And then I would maybe even say, well, maybe that's true. Maybe there's something here for me to learn. And that does bring down the temperature usually. And there may well be an invitation. Well, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? Whereas that invitation may not have been there if I had come at it like this, like with my brother, when I just said, I love you, man. There's no need for us to argue. There's no need for me to be right. And he doesn't like when I do that, but every time I do it, we're back to being brothers again.
That's very key is when there's no need to be right one way or another and to let things play out. If you can't have a there's nothing you can do to make that change personally yourself. It's to sit back and go, okay, I can't change that person or I can't change that situation. Because a lot of times I feel, let me know what you feel of, I feel like when people want to say it has to be this way, it has to be this way, they don't listen to the other person. And when they don't listen to the other person, their opinions, their ideas, and then it just becomes a battleground the whole time. And as you've been doing this, you have been also, it's working with, and there is so much political division right now. And that division is also going on to families themselves and breaking up families so many times when instead people can sit back and just look at it differently. Like you said, I don't know. Maybe I love you.
Yeah. So true. When I was driving out east to do this tour, I stopped in Minneapolis to spend a few days with my father.
Mm.
And my father is about as different from me as different can be, including in his political beliefs and what he thinks is important. And he is determined, because he's my father, to convince me
Right.
of his position. And I just simply wouldn't go there. And because of that, because we didn't argue, I didn't challenge him. We could just be father and son and enjoy each other, as opposed to getting into the battleground. And I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have had experiences like that in our families, with our friends, with people that we care for, and people who are no longer in our lives because of that. And it's just sad that that opinions and being right has to take precedence over just loving one another.
Absolutely. Have you noticed? I mean, there's been many, many elections. You and I have both experienced many elections in the past. Have you noticed a difference over time where it has seemed more divisive than what it has in the past? I mean,
Oh,
I myself don't remember the elections being this divisive between people. It was more of like, oh, you like this one, you like that one, okay, and there wasn't much to it.
no, I mean it's definitely increased tremendously because of the rhetoric. I mean, whether you are pro Donald Trump or not, let's look at what happened in the previous election when he lost to Joe Biden. He, I'm sure that he knows that he lost. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, there've been so many lawsuits, none of them were came out positive for him. But to keep that going, to keep people mad, to keep people angry, that was a strategy, and it worked. If he could just keep beating that drum, the election was stolen. And this is what leads to people storming the Capitol and all of the terrible things that have happened, because you keep stirring up hatred, you keep getting people angry. Well, the divide gets to be greater and greater. It used to be that if you look at people on the far left or people on the far right, these radicals, let's say it was maybe 5% on each side, right? But over time, because of the rhetoric, that has been growing. So maybe now it's 10 or 15% on each side. Let's say 15. So between the two, that's 30% of the population. But that leaves another, 70%, 60%, now 70, whatever. I'm bad at math. In the middle. And I may not be able to convince people on either side that it's time to relax, it's time just to come together, but we can convince people in that middle. And maybe this is where that movement has to start. If we can get to the people and say the rhetoric has to calm, we have to take our foot off the gas pedal, and if we can bring the heat down, then we don't have to continue to have elections like this that are so divisive and so polarizing. Once again, to have a movement of people around the world who are determined to bring peace and civility back to every area of our lives.
And I think that's the big key. It's about moving through this, working through this, and it's divisive in all aspects and all areas of everything we're doing lately. It seems like everything has divisiveness with it, but it's working through it and going, there is a way for us all together to come together, to have conversations, to work through all of this, and to have a world where it isn't as divisive, where we can talk things out, where, like you said before, we can have this space for people to talk with, the space to say, what is your opinion without the emotions getting in it and just going, what is it particularly about it? What is it that you like or don't like? And why is that? And to have those conversations and to find the common ground. By not having that division in there, we can find common ground. That's division on anything. And it's people in families where, like you said with your brother sometimes, where it just kind of, you kind of butt heads at times, and you to find that space to go, it's okay but let's move on from here.
Yeah, common ground, that is the key. You mentioned in the introduction that I have spent a lot of time traveling to countries at war or in conflict to perform a peace concert, peace troubadour. And
Here we go.
I and every time I go to a country like that, all I really end up finding are people like you and I, people who want the same things. There's so much common ground. There's more that unites us than divides us. So an
Yes.
example would be one of the first countries that I went to perform the peace concert was Iraq in 1998. I was actually invited by Saddam Hussein to come to Iraq to perform the peace concert at the same time that the tensions were ratcheting up and it was looking like we were going to have another war.
Right.
And so it was a propaganda move on his part to bring this American peace troubadour. And I went. And uh, when I was there, I met so many wonderful people that were just like you and I, who want peace, who want their families to be safe. And
Yes.
I did the concert at the National Theater, and afterwards they had a big party where all we did is sit around for hours eating and singing Simon and Garfunkel songs. So
Love it.
in Baghdad, of all places, the so-called enemy, right? Let me give you another example from an historic perspective. So, as you mentioned, I am an Episcopal Franciscan. So, St. Francis of Assisi has always been, I would say, my primary role model. And there's one story that I love the most. See, most people think of St. Francis as the guy with the birds and the animals. And sure, there are some stories, but he was very, very intense. And one of my favorite stories is he had this idea during the Crusades that he could end the Crusades if he simply went to the Sultan of Syria, who was the primary leader of Islam and especially of the army fighting against the Crusaders, that if Francis went to him and simply shared his perspective on love and the message of Christ, that he would end the war on his own. And everyone told him he was crazy. The Pope told him that he'd be excommunicated. That was never going to happen. And he was determined to do this. So it took him 3 tries. He finally arrived at the fortress of Damietta, which is where the battle was happening, where the Muslim army was encamped, and where the Sultan was. And he was immediately arrested, and he was going to be executed. But the Sultan was so curious. Let's come back to curiosity later, because this is another important part. But he was so curious about this friar who just wandered into town to try and talk to him that he decided to give him an audience. And he was so impressed by the simplicity and the humility of Francis that he not only let him live, but for 2 weeks, I think it was, Francis and his brother Illuminato spent time there at Damietta interacting with the Sultan as well as the Sultan's teacher, the greatest Sufi teacher at that time, the Fakir el-Din al-Farisi. And there was this alignment that happened because they were able to see that they had more in common than they had different. So if we can do that at war, certainly we can do that uh, with each other. Now, when I was in Iraq on that first trip, because I was there twice, but the first time that I was there, I in 1998, so not everyone even had email at that point.
Right.
Websites were not a big thing, but my agent sent out about 300 emails asking for people to be praying and sending their energy of peace to Baghdad at the same time that I would be doing that concert. Well, it was one of the first examples of a viral email. It ended up getting passed on to millions of people. And so when I was there finally on that day doing the concert, it felt as if it was raining prayer and we could feel the energy. And there didn't seem to be any possibility before that for any sort of settlement. But everything shifted that day. And 3 days later, Kofi Annan, the leader of the United Nations, the Secretary General of the UN, came and a peace accord was signed. And at least at that time, no one died, no bombs fell. And this was a movement. This is another example of a movement being created because we recognize the power of joining when we come together and say, we can do this. There were many other prayer vigils in which we had other similar amazing stories happen. But this is why I think a movement needs to start to depolarize all of the things that we're seeing today. Because if we can get enough people to be committed to this, to learn these tools. So once again, I'll just encourage people to go to de-polarize.com. Fill out the survey so we can get clear on our messaging, and let's work together to create an environment where the heat can dissipate and the love can increase.
That's something I really love because a lot of times people are praying for it to work out in their beliefs. So you're seeing people polarizing even in their prayer of I want it to work out this way or everyone needs to agree with me on this way. And I feel we all need to kind of back off a little bit because there's so much under the surface we all don't know yet. There's so much happening out there in the world, in the non-physical, that we just don't all know. And to have the ability to sit back and just wish for that peace, to put that prayer, those intentions out there of peace and having it happen and joining together. That's so key because I've seen people, and I'm just going to say my own experience, I've seen people where they're praying for certain things to work out a certain way instead of backing off and saying, there's bigger pictures going on. There's things with the world that we don't know. Let it play out, but let it play out in peace and let people come together. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, good point. It's like a country praying for God to be on their side, to
Right.
to kill the enemy. Uh, Now we're going to get really deep because people come to me often and they'll ask me, "Do you believe in God?" And they're surprised as a priest when I say no. I don't believe in a God. I don't believe in deity. So though I don't believe in that, what I do believe in is only God. That
Mm,
is all there is. So a football team praying for God to be on their side, or a country praying for that God to be on their side. There is no God out there. There is no deity, some Zeus sort of character out there in the clouds somewhere. We have to realize that the divine is within each one of us. And my willingness to see that in you triggers that reality within me. So
right.
that which I give to thee is received by me. One of the I think the most challenging things that I see today are Christians who claim to be followers of Christ, but do and believe the exact opposite. You can't
Yes.
call yourself a Christian if you are about killing the enemy, forcing out the immigrants, uh, getting the upper hand on the people who disagree with you. Jesus was a radical in love and forgiveness. He said, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, welcome the stranger. It was an upside down to logic. And this is why many very strong right-wing Christians today won't even really follow that they don't follow the gospel, and they don't claim to follow the gospel. They're Old Testament Christians, which makes no sense to me because the Old Testament has a lot more judgment and retribution. And this is what they believe. So I think part of this depolarization is if you're going to call yourself a Christian or whatever, then do it. Listen to what he said and follow that, or don't call yourself a Christian. So Christian nationalism, I think is one of the real driving forces to polarization today. It's the idea that God wants this, or God is in favor of us and our beliefs, and our politics get wrapped into our spirituality. I mean, there was a reason why the forefathers of our country separated the two. And yet so many Christians today want to bring them together and to say that if you're an American, you have to be a Christian, and you need to be a Christian in the way that I'm a Christian. You can't follow Christ because that doesn't support the current beliefs or the current trends. So yeah, we have to remember where that divine spark is, and it's in each one of us, no matter what we believe, no matter what our position is. I have a personal credo that I try to live which is I don't care who you voted for. Come and walk with me. I don't care what side you support, left or right, conservative, liberal. Come and serve with me. It doesn't matter what you say or what you believe, because I'm going to love you no matter what. So come and love with me. It's my challenge, and maybe if others were to take up that same challenge, all of these things that we're being so challenged by today will just simply relax and dissolve on their own.
And that's key is learning to walk with people, to understand where they're coming from. Because a lot of people, it's understanding where they're coming from, understanding their viewpoint. It doesn't mean you have to take their viewpoint. It just means to understand their viewpoint. And then by doing so, just like you said before, you're finding common ground. And honestly, most people are on more common ground than not common ground. But it's just understanding. It's just viewed differently. It's looked at differently. It's treated differently. But like you said, kind of walk the talk. If you're going to talk it, walk it. That's
I had a
also
great,
something.
I had a really great story. Something happened to me a few years ago that I did write about in the book. Like you said, to understand where someone's coming from rather than just judge them.
Right.
So this was probably about 2017. And so Donald Trump is in his first administration. And I was at that time on Match.com.
Okay.
And and so I met a woman there, and we had a couple of conversations and decided to get together for dinner. Well, I'll say that it was probably the best first date of my life. It was so great. There was great attraction. We had so much in common, such a good conversation. So we went out on a second date, even better, right? And finally, on the third date, we went out to dinner, and she said, "There's something I need to tell you." And my kids told me I shouldn't tell you this, but I feel like I have to be in integrity. I said, okay, whatever it is, there's nothing that you can say that's going to change the way I feel. She said, okay, good, because I love Donald Trump. And the first word out of my mouth was, what? How is that I mean, this is in Portland, Oregon, very liberal city. As far as I could tell, she was a typical Portlandian. She has a transgender daughter, which didn't seem to have any problem with. A son who I think was a bartender at a strip club or something like that. And so I was surprised, but I did ask, tell me more about that. Why is it that you're so in love with Donald Trump? And she shared with me how when she was a young girl, uh, living at home with her sister and her father uh, loved to work in the prison system and would often, when men were leaving the prison and they didn't have anywhere to go, he would invite them to come and live with him and his daughters.
Mm.
And some really bad things happened. And she blamed her father and his liberal beliefs for not keeping her and her sister safe. So this is this is what formed her, and she then therefore saw Donald Trump as someone who would protect her, protect the country. Now, of course, I never thought about it like that, but it didn't change anything that I believe, but it gave me an understanding about her perspective and why she believed what she believed. And I think this is what we need. And once again, just listening to each other, listening to our stories, curiosity. We mentioned that before. If I'm curious about what brought you to a certain opinion, like I was curious with this woman, then a conversation can open up instead of just me trying to convince you or trying to change you. And maybe you'll ask me about my beliefs and you'll be curious about what leads me to feel the way I feel. But all I know is that all of these tools, they just bring the heat down in a conversation and help us to come back together. And if we can come back together, then I think the environment that we've seen for a long time now with the political divides and these elections, I believe if we can have this movement take root, it's going to change on its own.
Yeah. And things we want to have a world where that's not divisive going forward, and that means listening to both sides always and hearing both sides out. And as you've written the book, I don't know, maybe I Love You. Was that also, is there a lot of things in there where you talk people through challenging situations and how you went back to your heart to follow your advice and how to work through some of those spicy situations?
Hmm. I'm trying to remember in all of those conversations. I remember once, because what happened was I drove down the coast through Pennsylvania and then began the very long drive back to Portland, Oregon. I remember I was pretty far west, very small town, and I stopped at a Pizza Hut to have dinner. And the woman behind the counter, she was very funny, an older woman who was just started going on about her beliefs, and because there were two people in the restaurant that had just left that she decided were crazy liberals, and these crazy people are just ruining the country.
Mm.
And I didn't say anything, but what I heard coming from the back was another woman saying something to the effect of, "Well, if it wasn't for the crazy conservatives like you, blah blah blah." And she came out, and I realized in that moment that these two women are together. These two women are in a relationship, and the dynamic that was going on as they just leaned into each other. One was obviously very liberal, the other one was very conservative, and they're calling each other crazy. I just enjoyed it. I listened to it, and so most of the conversations that I had with people that I wrote about it in the book were well, because I tried to bring the title in with me. I don't know, maybe I love you. So even when I was talking to people who had a very different opinion than me, they ended up being very good conversations. There was a man that I met, I think I was in Nebraska, and I pulled into a truck stop very late at night and was just going to stay in my van. I went into the truck stop. The only other person that was in there was a huge guy that looked so dangerous, big
Mm.
trucker guy, and he's looking at me like I didn't know what. I didn't know why he was staring at me. And finally he said, "Are you James Twyman?" How does this guy in the middle of the country, this big trucker guy, how does he know who I am? And he said, "Oh, my wife reads your books and my wife watches your services there in Mexico. Can you sit down and talk with me?" I said, "Sure."
Cool.
His name was Stan. They call him Stan the Man. And it was so funny because Stan was completely different than what one of we may have expected. And he was salt of the earth for sure, but his wife, who was a very deeply spiritual woman, had opened up something in him. We had a beautiful conversation at 1 a.m. in this little truck stop. Of course, I don't know what happened to him, but something magical happens when we just relax into each other. Music can do that for us as well. Prayer can often do that. In fact, I'm reminded of another story that happened to me when I was in Cape Town, South Africa, quite a number of years ago. I was invited there to come and do some peace concerts not long after apartheid ended. And while I was there, I met a minister named Reverend Martins. And he worked in the townships where most of the violence was taking place. So at that time, Cape Town was the murder capital of the world. There were maybe 300 murders a month in Cape Town, mainly in the townships. So
Right.
he worked with all the different gangs and gang leaders in the townships and wanted me to come and give a talk, to bring them all together, all the different gangs, and give them a talk. Well,
That had to be interesting.
It was. I thought, I don't know what I'm going to say to these people, but I'll try. So we met in one of the townships, and I can remember it was almost like a scene from West Side Story. We're already there, and coming down this road, there are about three or four cars, and all these very dangerous looking guys get out. And from this road, another three or four cars, a bunch of dangerous guys get out, and they all kind of
Oh,
come together. And the reason it was working is because they all had great respect for Reverend Martin's. I said whatever I said. I don't have any memory of it, but I do remember that I sang the prayer of Saint Francis, which is one of
um,
my own personal favorites. And, of course, people know it. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. So after the talk was over, one of the more dangerous looking guys came up to me and he said, "Can I speak to you for a moment over there, away from everyone else?" Okay. All right. Uh,
trust,
yeah,
trust.
so we did. He stepped away, and I could see immediately the reason he wanted to step away is because he had tears in his eyes. He didn't want
Mm,
anybody else to see this. And he said to me, "I have killed as many as 5 people in one day. That's
wow.
my life. And I don't know how to do what you described or what that prayer described, but I want to. I want to learn." What do you say to someone who says something like that? The most I can do is witness and be present for him. But there was something about the humanity that we shared. And I don't know what happened to him afterwards. I don't know if he went back to his former behavior or if he totally changed. I'd like to think that a seed was planted in him. And so maybe that's what this movement is all about, is we're planting seeds. We're planting seeds in the places where great division and great polarization has taken root. And maybe the seeds of compassion and curiosity and just understanding one another, maybe those seeds are going to begin to sprout and a whole new garden is going to begin to grow.
I know definitely seeds are being planted and the world is coming together. That I've felt for a while. It may feel a little dicey because we're seeing on a lot of areas that we're being shown the division. But if you step back from the division, there's a lot of people that are really wanting to plant the seeds of coming together, of understanding each other, and to step out of of the polarization that has been and have it depolarized. So I know it's working, it's getting there, and more people are stepping on board with being depolarized, and that's so important. And I know you had said you've got to get out of here pretty quick here. So I just, is there other things? I know you have your village. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. That is pretty amazing. And then you also have your do you still do the levitation course? Is
I
that something?
don't. No, that was
Okay.
something a few years ago. But
Okay.
things here in Mexico, it's a town called Ajijic on Lake Chapala, right outside of Guadalajara. It's the number one expat location for Americans and Canadians living outside their
Okay.
countries. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful community. And we started this spiritual community, Namaste Village, about 7.5 years ago. And it has grown and taken root. We have 40 something houses or casitas or apartments, and we're almost always full. If people want information on that, they can just go to namaste-village.com and you can see a little video, a walkthrough video of the community. It's a lovely place, and we've just been growing and sharing in such beautiful ways.
Wow, I love it. And you also do, you had talked earlier about having services or things you do. Do you do that yet? And how does that work?
Well, every morning, or Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. our time, we all come together, and it's also on Zoom, and then it's put onto YouTube. And we
Okay.
have our morning session, which is usually me sharing a teaching, and Vicky, who I mentioned before. Vicky's with me there every day,
Nice.
and it's just a great way for us to come together. And if people want to check one of those out, all you need to do is maybe go to YouTube. And if you put in Namaste Village morning session, a
Oh,
lot of them
okay.
are going to come up because we put them up there pretty much every day.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, James, I want to thank you so much. And I want to encourage everyone to make sure to go to his websites. There are many. So there's the worldpeacepulse.com, and then there is the de-polarization.com, and also
Polarize. It's
polarize,
de-polarize.com.
de-polarize. Got it. Yep, I wrote down, yep. De-polarize.com, and then also the Namaste Village. That is going to be interesting. So is namastevillage.com also, or is that Namaste Village on YouTube?
It's namaste-village.com. But if you go to YouTube, if you type in Namaste Village morning session,
Got
uh,
it.
all of our morning sessions will come up.
Awesome. Well, there is so much for people to go and check out about you, along with the music, the books, and you've got your new book, I don't know, maybe I love you. So much more coming. And you have, there's, what do you have, like 22 books you have out there or something like that? It's a lot.
Well, I have another one, and now that I'm back into it, I have another one that's gonna be coming out soon. So that'll be 25.
Oh,
I
because you got to get more. You've been just
can't help myself.
all you have to offer people, and I am just so thrilled to have you here. So thank you so much, James. I appreciate it greatly, and I encourage people, and I will have the links to those down below. I will have the links to the three different websites, different to the YouTube channel. I'll have those links down below for everyone. And I just want to thank you so much, James, for being here and sharing your knowledge, sharing your heart. I appreciate it greatly, and helping people to depolarize. It is so important going forward.
You, Angel. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. And I just want to also let people know to make sure to watch the next episodes of Edge Talk Radio. They are on the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you've missed any past episodes, no worries. You can go on to either my YouTube channel, Edge Magazine's YouTube channel, and pretty much all of the downloadable podcast areas like Apple Podcasts, or Apple Radio, and Spotify, all the different downloadable podcast areas. It's pretty much everywhere. And I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank you all for listening, expanding, and amplifying our universe together. Thank you all and have an